Before anything is said, remember this moment. Courtrooms don't begin with drama. They begin with an oath. And that oath is about to collide with grief, guilt, and a lifetime of consequences. Ask yourself now, can words ever balance a life already lost?
Okay. All right, Chloe, for the first thing I'm going to have you do is I'm going to have you raise your right hand. Do you swear the information and testimony you're about to give this court will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Okay. You're going to have to speak up. I know that you're fairly soft-spoken, so were you able to get that? All right, go ahead.
I appreciate the opportunity to be heard during this whole process. I am terribly sorry for many things in my life, but most of all for who was lost, and I always will be. Every single day I live with my guilt. I have drowned in sorrow and regret with such an acute awareness of it for so long, I never imagined there would be anything more than that for me. Quite frankly, I didn't believe I deserved anything more than just that. In the past, I genuinely believed I had to die every day for my daughter, to hate myself for my failure in protecting her. But I know now that life goes on whether I suffer or not, so I need to stop taking from it. I know now that I must live for my daughter instead and do the best I can to be kind and loving and giving, because that's exactly what being with Hannah taught me. I see her everywhere, in everything. She lives on and shows me that beauty can be found anywhere, even where I'm going, because I can feel her in my tears. I feel her in my friend's embrace. I see her in a stranger's kindness, in someone's undiluted joy at seeing their loved one.
This isn't just remorse. This is someone trying to narrate their own moral reckoning. Notice how she shifts from guilt to purpose, from punishment to meaning. But here's the question that matters. Does acceptance soften responsibility or sharpen it?
I hear her in people's laughter, and I know her most of all in my family's loyal love for me, even still. No matter how bad our losses, life can be good again, and this is not my end. I accept my punishment with peace, and I want it to be known for every person that has prayed for me, that our Father has heard you, and I have been given a contentment that the world cannot take away. My daughter's memory rests now, so I am able to as well.
This line is legally explosive. She admits she doesn't meet the legal definition of insanity, and that matters. In court, mental illness explains behavior, but it doesn't excuse it. And that distinction is about to define her sentence.
I want it to be said that no one ever plans to lose control of their own mind. This trial was only a snapshot of my life and mind. It's easy to review the past and say what could have been done differently. It's even easier to say what someone should have done. But that's just it. In the midst of a terrifying situation, you can't actually think. The horror and fear you feel clouds your thinking abilities and disconnects you from reality. So though I may not legally meet the definition of insanity as of today, I know in the bottom of my heart that I was, because I never would have done what I did had it not been for my decompensation. In the end, we can't go back and undo the bad, no matter how much we want to. But we can learn from it and prevent it from happening again. I will continue to seek help for my mental illness because of this. I read once that suffering is cheap as clay and twice as common. What matters, though, is what each man makes of it, and I promise I will make the best of whatever you give me, Your Honor. Thank you.
Yeah, y'all stay. Yes.
When a judge says his discretion is limited, that's not humility, that's law. In Georgia, this isn't about emotion anymore. It's a binary choice, life with parole or life without it. Everything you're hearing now is the court weighing whether redemption is even legally allowed.
I have continued to think about this case after the verdict, as I am sure all of us have. I have been aware that based on the law, that my only real discretion in this case is whether to sentence you to life without parole or life with the possibility of parole. I am aware, as Ms. Trethewey pointed out, that the parole eligibility in this state would dictate that you would serve 30 years of a life sentence before you were considered for parole. This was a heinous offense with evidence that was so graphic and traumatic that I began to do research on what kind of support and help we could give the jurors who were having to consider it. A parent killing a child is something that just offends us on the deepest level. It is a wrong that just is unfathomable. It just cannot be understood. And it scares us because it is so contrary to just fundamental moral behavior and what we expect of the bonds between human beings. And I have all those thoughts. I have had all those thoughts in this case. I noticed throughout the trial and considered it as part of the tragedy, quite honestly, that there were really no family members here to support you, and that Mr. Ben Michael was not here interested in the outcome of what was going to happen to his child, the person who killed his child. That was a very interesting dynamic to me. So I'm glad to see him here today. You don't need to speak to me at this point, sir. Your opportunity to speak has come and gone. Although the response I just heard doesn't do anything to make the whole situation any less tragic. But as I said, I'm glad to have heard from Mr. Ben Michael and to honestly try to give him some benefit of the doubt, understanding that there is an impact on him that cannot be measured, as he put it, and just again an impact on the universe. One more child who never goes to school, never gets to have a boyfriend or go to the prom.
This is a tightrope of justice. The jury found her guilty but mentally ill. That verdict doesn't erase the crime, but it forces the system to acknowledge sickness without surrendering accountability. Do you think the law gets its balance right?
Never gets to decide what a career is. They're not words to talk about what a terrible thing it is. But I do also feel bound to consider the fact that if you had succeeded, we would not have been here. We would have read about a tragic, inexplicable murder-suicide. I have to take into account that 3 different psychologists testified as to your profound mental illness, the depths of your sickness, your illness. I have to take into account the fact that the jury found you guilty but mentally ill, because they obviously were aware they had the choice of imposing a different sentence. Different verdict, I'm sorry, a verdict of guilty that did not reference any of your mental illness. Georgia law, Georgia statute means that the guilty but mentally ill verdict gives the Department of Corrections some direction and some ability to continue to provide treatment for you, but that is in their discretion. There's no black and white law as to how a judge is to consider that verdict. I will note that the jury found that you did not meet the criteria of not guilty by reason of insanity. The law in Georgia has been the same for about 200 years now. Whether or not that ever changes because of changes in medical and societal understanding of mental illness and how to treat it, I do not know. The intersection between law and medicine can be, well, it does not always mesh well. Things evolve. We now have treatment courts for people with mental illness and addiction, substance use issues, and the law and the courts slowly come about in proper cases to figure out about treatment. I don't quarrel with the jury's verdict. I don't impose this sentence out of sympathy. But I do think under everything that I heard, the sentence needs to take into account the possibility that in 30 years there may be different treatment modalities, different recommendations, different possibilities for your rehabilitation. I think the notion that you are cured because you're taking medication regularly now is something that I don't accept. I believe everyone acknowledges that, or at least based on the law and the testimony we heard in this case, that borderline personality disorder.
And here it is, the moment everything funnels into life in prison, but with the possibility of parole. Not mercy, not forgiveness, just the recognition that people in medicine can change. The real question now is this: should the future ever be allowed to rewrite the past?
For example, is a deep sickness that is not treated just by medication, for example. you were treated in order for you to gain competency to be able to actually go to trial. I don't think anybody who's dealt with anybody with mental illness is naive enough to suggest that you're cured. And I know I don't mean that as a criticism or a punishment. It's just reality. You did a horrible thing. But based on the evidence at trial and based on particularly the mental health testimony, the court will impose the following sentence as to count 1, malice murder, life in prison with the possibility of parole. Count 2 and count 3 are vacated as a matter of law in that you cannot be sentenced to more than one murder count when there is only one victim. Count 4 merges into count 1. I agree with the state that count 5 does not merge into count 1 as it contains a different element. That is that the victim is a child under the age of 18. That is not an element of malice murder specifically. So as to count 5, the court imposes a sentence of 20 years to serve in the state prison system concurrent with count 1. You have a right to appeal this conviction. You have a right to file a motion for new trial requesting other post-judgment relief. You must file any such notice of appeal or motion for new trial within 30 days of sentencing. You are entitled to have a lawyer represent you, and if you cannot afford to hire one will be appointed to represent you. I know Ms. Trethaway and Mr. Kessler are familiar with the procedures of our Indigent Defense Office as to how new counsel would be appointed to represent you moving forward. I would request that that the counsel, if you will remain with us, and we will keep Ms. Driver, we can keep her here to get the minutes prepared, reviewed, signed, and get that taken care of before Ms. Driver is taken away from the jail, or the holding cell. Yes. All right. Thank you all.
Thank you.